Hello everyone, welcome to another wonderful session with PDV Lidex Education. So guys, we are going to discuss a wonderful process today and we call it photosynthesis, or you can also call it photoautotrophic nutrition. Yes, photosynthesis, as we all know, is the basis of life, right? It is what supports us today. It is what supports or gives me the energy for standing here today, right? So what is photosynthesis? What is photosynthesis, or what is photoautotrophic nutrition? So photosynthesis is simply the chemical process. The chemical process. That's the first thing. It is a chemical process. It is a chemical process by which green plants and other phototrophs, like what? Like green algae and photosynthetic bacteria, manufacture complex organic food substances such as glucose from what? From simple inorganic food substances. From simple inorganic substances such as carbon dioxide and water, using solar energy trapped by their chlorophyll found in the chloroplast, and emitting oxygen as a waste or a byproduct. So once again, for 3 marks, photosynthesis is the chemical process by which green plants and other phototrophs such as green algae and photosynthetic bacteria manufacture complex organic food substances such as glucose from simple inorganic substances such as carbon dioxide and water, using solar energy trapped by their chlorophyll found in the chloroplast of the leaves and other green parts of the structure. So that is photosynthesis, right, for 3 marks. Now, photosynthesis actually is an energy transduction process, because in photosynthesis, solar energy from the sun is converted into chemical energy and stored in the bonds of sugars. Solar energy from the sun is what? Is converted into chemical energy and stored in the bonds of sugars, which we harvest and consume. So photosynthesis actually is an energy transduction process because it takes energy from one form into another. So this process can be represented chemically as follows. So we have carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, right? Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere combines with water from the soil to produce what? To produce let me write it again. Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere combines with water from the soil in the presence of sunlight, right? Sunlight trapped by the chloroplast by the chlorophyll in the chloroplast to produce glucose C6H12O6 plus what? Plus oxygen as a waste product, right? But when we are at the advanced level, we realize that water is also formed as one of the products of photosynthesis. So here we are going to add plus water. So when you balance the equation, you are going to have 6 here, you are going to have 12 here, you are going to have you have 6 here, and you also have 6 there, right? So that is the balance equation of photosynthesis. Oxygen is 12 plus 12 is 24. 12 plus 12, 24. Okay, so this equation clearly shows that inorganic substances, simple, right? Simple because carbon dioxide is a linear molecule. Water is a bent or a V-shaped molecule. These are simple molecules, which are what? Inorganic molecules, right? They don't fall in organic chemistry, so they are inorganic molecules. Simple inorganic molecules are what? They are converted into what? Into a complex organic molecule, which an example is glucose, right? Even though this glucose can be converted into other forms after synthesis. So into glucose, and that glucose in that process, right, oxygen is produced as a waste product and water is also formed again. How is water formed in photosynthesis? But before that, when you write the equation, right, generally you are, in fact, you may have seen that in the equation, right, water is not placed as a product, but water is placed as a reactant, right? That is correct. But the main thing is that in that case, the person who has such an equation is using the fact that the water represented in the equation is a net effect of water. Because yeah, if we subtract 6 water molecules from both sides, then we shall have 6 carbon dioxide plus 6 water gives us glucose plus oxygen. In that case, overall, water is used in photosynthesis. But what you must note is that in photosynthesis, water is a reactant and water is also a product. Yes. So the raw materials for photosynthesis are what? Carbon dioxide and water. And photosynthesis generally occurs in 2 stages. We have what we call the light dependent reactions, we have the light dependent reactions and we have the light independent reactions, also called the dark reactions, even though the most appropriate term is the light independent reactions because they can occur both during the day and during the night. So in the light dependent reaction, right, the light dependent reaction typically uses water. The overall whole of the light dependent reaction of photosynthesis. But before that, we have two reactants, carbon dioxide and water, right? The first reactant used is water, right? Water is used in the light dependent reaction. Water is broken down in a process called photolysis. So water broken down in the light dependent reactions, we say water is broken down to produce protons, to produce electrons, and to produce oxygen as a waste gas, right? We balance the equation. So this equation, right, clearly illustrates the light dependent reaction of photosynthesis, and it takes place in the presence of sunlight, which provides the energy required to break down the water molecules. This process is called photolysis of water and summarizes what happens in the light dependent reactions of photosynthesis. This reaction typically takes place in the at the thylakoid membranes, right, of the chloroplast of the plant cell. So light dependent reaction does what? It splits water by photolysis to produce hydrogen ions, electrons, and oxygen. This oxygen produced here, right, is produced right from the light dependent reactions. That means that from this equation, it shows that glucose, oxygen, and water are produced at the same time. No, right? The first product from this equation that is produced is oxygen. It is produced even before carbon dioxide is used as a reactant, and it is produced even before glucose is formed, right? So this is the light dependent reaction of photosynthesis. It occurs at the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. So after this hydrogen and protons are produced, what happens to them, right? They are going to be carried up, right? They'll be carried to the light independent reactions where they shall be used to reduce a compound that we call glycerate phosphate into glyceraldehyde phosphate. So the hydrogen, the proton and the electron produced in the light dependent reactions are later on carried. So there's a messenger that comes to carry them, and that messenger, we call it oxidized NAT, right? We call it oxidized NAT. So when oxidized NAT, right, when oxidized NAT comes in the light dependent reaction, it does what? It carries protons and electrons. Protons and electrons make what? They make hydrogen. So oxidized NAT is going to carry protons and electrons and in that process is going to form reduced NAD, right? So it will form reduced NAD, and reduced NAD now will carries what? It carries the hydrogen, which comprises what? Protons and electrons, and takes them to the light independent reactions or the Calvin cycle. On arriving there, the reduced NAD will release the hydrogen, and that hydrogen will be used to what? To reduce glycerate phosphate, right? So glycerate 3-phosphate is going to be reduced into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, right? Into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Glycerate phosphate is a compound, is a first stable product of the Calvin cycle. It is a first stable product of the Calvin cycle, and it is a 3-carbon compound, right? It is a 3-carbon compound, and that's the reason why the Calvin cycle is also called the C3 cycle, because its first stable product is a 3-carbon compound called glycerate phosphate. Glycerate phosphate is formed when carbon dioxide is fixed onto a molecule of ribulose biphosphate. That is, when ribulose biphosphate combines with carbon dioxide, right, in the presence of the enzyme rubisco, it forms glycerate 3-phosphate. So glycerate 3-phosphate has carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide, right, when it is fixed on glycerate phosphate, it appears as a carboxylate group. Carbon dioxide appears as a carboxylate group in glycerate 3-phosphate. So when NAD brings hydrogen, the role of that hydrogen is to reduce the carboxylate group in glycerate 3-phosphate into an aldehyde group. And how is it reduced? An aldehyde group is this. This is an aldehyde group, right? That's an aldehyde group. So this group will be reduced to aldehyde group by doing what? By removing off this oxygen at the hydroxy group. And how is the oxygen removed? It is removed by the hydrogen, which NAD brings from the light-dependent reaction. So when the hydrogen combines with the oxygen from the hydroxy group, it forms what? It forms water. And that's why we say that water is also produced as one of the products of photosynthesis. So water is a reactant, and at the same time, water is a product. And how is water formed? Water is formed during the reduction of glycerate 3-phosphate to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate in the Calvin cycle or the C3 cycle. So photosynthesis uses simple molecules to produce a complex molecule, a complex organic molecule alongside a waste gas, which is very important for living organisms. And at the same time, it produces fewer molecules of one of the raw materials or of one of the reactants, which is water. Photosynthesis occurs in the light-dependent stage and the light-independent stage. The light-dependent stage occurs in the thylakoid membranes of the chloroplast of the plant cells, while the light-independent stage occurs in the stroma of the chloroplast. The double membrane bond chloroplast is permeable to carbon dioxide, water, as well as oxygen. So in our next lesson, we shall go into detail to talk about the events of the light-dependent stage of photosynthesis, as well as the events of the Calvin cycle or the events of the light-independent stage of photosynthesis. And we shall also look about C4 plants and the crans anatomy. So guys, I hope you had a great understanding of this lesson. Please like the video, share the video, and invite your friends to the educational biome of pure excellence. God bless you, and God bless PDV Videx Education. Thank you so much.